Good morning, Ria.
Good morning.
Of course, you guys know our famous speaker here this morning, Dino Champagne. She's going to speak with us about something that's really going to help us get back to selling some real estate. She's going to speak with us this morning on the 1031 exchange and beyond, back to the basics. Let me tell you just a little bit about Dino. Dino Champagne is the Los Angeles, Riverside, San Bernardino County Division Manager for the Asset Prevention, for the Asset Preservation Inc., also known as the API, which is a subsidiary of Stewart Title Company. And it's a leading national IRC 1031 qualified intermediary, facilitated over 90,000 exchanges throughout the United States. Ms. Champagne has been in the business for over 25 years. She has experience in commercial real estate and banking. She has in-depth background as a public speaker, a trainer, and a facilitator, over 100 accredited seminars on IRC Section 1031 exchanges, tax exchange, deferred exchanges throughout Southern California. Her exchange presentations are practical and features many real-life exchange scenarios to illustrate a wide range of investment and tax strategies. So this morning, Dino has a lot of good information that I feel that will help our business and to get those sales that we so desperately need to close out. So please give Dino Champagne a warm welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This thing on? We're on?
Yep.
I wish we were back at the time when that intro was written, because that was about 2002. How is business?
Great.
Great. I get this question every day, especially from brokers. Dino, how's the 1031 business? I look at the broker and I say, John, how's your business? I said, well, we're locked at the wallet, the two of us, are we not? 1031 exchanges, what are you doing? If you're selling investment real estate, so if you guys aren't selling anything, our exchanges are down. So the reality today is, I want to go into what trends we're seeing for 2009 as a company, and then hopefully some of the information that you have, you can take to your clients and then maybe get them inspired to start selling some more and doing some more exchanges. Okay, a couple of things I want to remind you about. First of all, can I see a show of hands of how many of you have had dealt in the 1031 transactions with your clients? All right, very good. A couple of things to remind you about. In the 1031 code, you have what? How many days to identify?
45.
And how many days to complete the transaction?
180.
180. Is that where we stop at 180? Say no. The tax code says you have 180 days or your tax filing date, whichever is earlier. I want to remind you, right now we're in that whichever is earlier period. Because if you had a client that closed on a transaction last year, let's say October 17th or 18th, by virtue of when we are required to file our tax returns, which is when?
April 15th.
April 15th. That does not give the taxpayer 180 calendar days. It does not. So if they close on December 15th, that's even less time. You see my point? So if you're working with clients that you have helped them sell an investment piece of property, and you're still in the process of doing the exchange portion, getting the replacement property, you probably want to remind your client, because not every client that you work with has competent tax advisors. Would that be true?
Yes.
Okay? Competent tax advisors are critical in an exchange or in any real estate transaction for that matter. So in this particular situation, if your client is walking into their TurboTax office, which is what, probably their mirror in front of them, and going forward trying to do their exchange, their taxes, and they sold a replacement property, but relinquished property, but they did not buy a replacement property, and they filed that return, and then after they file their returns like good little taxpayers and they close on their replacement property, they have blown their exchange. They've blown their exchange because the IRS does not give you the opportunity to amend your return in the Treasury regulations. It tells you you must file an extension on your return in order to get the benefit of the full 180-day period. Okay, so that's just another little tip to remind people, because we always forget, because we always think, oh, 180 calendar days, right? But we forget that other little segment which says, or your tax filing date, whichever is earlier. So you might want to be helpful to your clients, remind them if they're in the middle of an exchange about the requirements for filing their tax returns and completing the exchange. Okay? Now, the next thing to be aware of, if your client's exchanges fail, would it be fair to say that some of your real estate transactions don't close on the replacement property side, those of you working with exchangers? All right. I think we're seeing a little bit of that in our world, right, John? Okay, exchanges open. Sometimes the ones that open don't even close. But even if the ones that open close, the replacement property side doesn't come to completion. Now, if your client has an exchange that has failed, and it failed in the next tax year. So, for example, we're back to 2008. They sold a relinquished property in 2008. They've identified replacement property in 2009 and such, and they could not acquire this property for whatever reason. Can we say possibly lending? Because we're seeing that as a major problem for not being able to get things accomplished. Okay, so they couldn't complete the exchange. Which year do they report the gain? Which year do they report the gain? 209, or actually I can opt for 2008. But 209 would be one way because people now fall under a different tax code, and that's tax code 453, which is the installment sale tax code. So they can affect, basically, instead of paying the gain in 2008, they can pay the gain in 2009. Now, there is one catch to that. The recapture of the depreciation will hit in the 2008 tax year. So you want to make sure that your clients are seeking what? Good tax advice from a qualified, competent tax advisor that understands the tax codes and how they work together. So that's the good news in a failed exchange. That's the good news, is that if it's failed into another tax year, the gain could be deferred by virtue of the installment sale. Now, here's something I want you to be aware of. How many of you see a few foreclosures and short sales out there? I should see all hands going up on that. Okay? Is this a buyer's market if they have money to buy? Okay, the man with the money is the one that's going to be dictating all the terms and conditions. That's how it was in the 90s. How many of you were in real estate in the 90s? Okay, was it like this in the 90s? Not probably as bad, but yeah, it wasn't good. Okay, so if you have cash, cash is king. You go out there, you can go buy, some property. So when people are selling an investment piece of property and they're doing an exchange, and they're looking as a replacement property solution, a foreclosure or a short sale, do you think that's a good investment for the investor?
No.
Potentially it could be. It depends on what they're buying, right? Now, here's the thing I want you to be aware of as agents or brokers working on these transactions. The timing of these things.